that lovely ending where he's literally just got that B minor chord, and then he just shifts it up the guitar like that.
Okay, so Rhayn Jooste, thank you very much for joining me. Uh,
Thank you for having me.
well,
Really appreciate it.
this is something that I mean I've known you for at least a few years now, and
Yes.
we've been in contact on and off. And I've been an admirer of yours because of all the work that you do with your online guitar lessons, and I just think that the amount of time and trouble that you go to that you put into your videos that I know from YouTube and also your other online presence like on Facebook. I just I've always been impressed by the amount of effort that you put in. When you started to use YouTube, did you envisage that this is what you would be doing?
Do you know, it's quite funny. I saw a comment from a friend of mine who was like, "Oh, I'm one of the original YouTubers from way back in the day." It was like 2007, and he was saying that there's not many accounts left that were from that era that are still active. And so I was just like, "Oh, I wonder when I joined you because I can't remember. It was so long ago." So I went back and actually I was on YouTube in 2006. And yeah, and I mean, you look at the metrics for it, and it's just flat, 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 flat. Because when I joined YouTube, it was um, it was such a brand new thing. It was so new and shiny and unheard of, and there wasn't a lot of guitar, there wasn't a lot of tutorials, there wasn't a lot of anything. And so, no, I didn't. It's just that simple. And I kind of wish I did. Hindsight is a real bugger looking back at it now. Um, but
Well, I mean that's it's fascinating. I started a YouTube channel years and years ago, and I had no idea what to do with it. I didn't really understand how it worked. In a way, you put video out, and you did. Was there a certain point that you started to look at the statistics and think, I put a video out, and I've 5 people have watched it, and
never. And the other thing is, I never worried about whether people joined the channel or how many people watched either, which is now like a main thing now, isn't it? You've got to have a certain level of followers, and you've got to have a certain level of watch hours and all that. Nah. I mean, my early videos I put out because students needed them. And so my early videos were like, oh, we've done a lesson, right? I will do quick video, whack it up on YouTube, and then you can have it. And then, I don't have to worry about getting that sort of stuff out to them, and they can have it and they can watch it in their bedroom all the time. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
well, I think I sort of touched on the subject, but I really admire your journalistic skills because you've got very good, very strong writing style, and also you've got a very strong personality, a very friendly personality, and I think that it really comes across in your videos.
Oh, cool.
Your
Okay.
interest, do you have an interest in writing and
Do
communication in terms of the written form?
Yes. Well, the thing is, I did a master's degree, and off the back of my master's degree, I actually went into publishing. So I actually started to write for encyclopedias originally in America, and a book. There was a book as well at some point, but there's a website that puts calls out for paper. Uh, this journal is looking for articles on West African music or the psychology of 19th century feminism. And in amongst all of that, there were one or two ones that hit where I was studying, my Cuban music and Latin American music. And so yeah, I started like that, encyclopedic entries. And then I did a main one for Leo Brouwer for one of the books that came out in America, which was an encyclopedia of America's and something else I can't remember. And then I left it for a bit, um, and then I started doing my own blogging, and I wanted to do my own books as well, my own publications, and so I kind of honed that as well. But then I also went back to study writing. So I did. Have you ever heard of edX? Those massively online uh, free courses.
No, I haven't.
Okay,
That's
so I mean,
interesting.
I basically I went back to edX and I did a three-stage course on writing properly. So it was the first stage was just the basics, how to structure everything, and going right back to the beginning. The second stage was writing for education, so doing advanced education, doing your postdoc, your degrees, and how to set that up. And then the third one, I think, was writing for business and all of that. And so I actually went back and just refreshed my skills, because I knew that my English and my education was not as good as it could have been, and that really pushed me, and that's basically where it started.
Well, that's amazing story, because also because I think I was about 16, and when I first went to music college, one of the lecturers there used to say to me, if you can't write things down, you can't write your thoughts down, then how are you ever going to express what it is that you're doing, and how are you ever going to understand what you're doing? So in other words, we're guitarists,
Yes.
musicians, and most of the processes that we have are very internal. And the
Yes.
danger is that you can just develop this whole persona that's kind of enclosed. And so I didn't really quite understand what he meant at the time, but I was like, certainly from leaving school, my writing skills were very poor, and that planting that seed about writing had an effect on me, and made me start to question whether I really ought to start writing myself.
Because
Do you think that
you've actually got a
informs?
PhD, haven't you? So sorry, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. You have a PhD.
Do you
You actually
think
went further with that. Yeah.
having this interplay between being this sort of enclosed musician and being able to express it in writing, do you find that helps your clarity of thought in terms
Very
of
much
what
so.
you're doing?
Very much so. I mean, I know that you and I kind of sort of met over the Villa-Lobos stuff, didn't we?
Yes.
And what happened was the book got written generally before I did the videos, and that was the only way that I was able to structure all of my thoughts coherently enough, and also to just grapple with the music, and then being able to, because I mean, I might be able to understand it, but being able to understand it for myself and then being able to express it and teach it is a whole different ball game. And so writing it down, I was able to go, ah, yeah, that works, or that's not what I'm saying. I need to figure out another way of presenting that to make it clearer and more understandable. So yeah, definitely.
Well, I certainly think that that's what comes across, and that's what made me interested in your teachings on your YouTube channel, and
Thank you.
through your also because you've got a very active newsletter.
Yes. Well, not recently. COVID has kind of killed that a little bit, but yeah, I mean, listen, it's important. I wanted to build up a community. I didn't want to just sit and be a talking head. I wanted people to come back at me and go, yeah, you know what? I want to do this, or actually, you're talking crap. And I get a lot of that. Funnily enough, I get a lot of that in YouTube comments. I even get some funny emails as well. It's really funny, but I want that interaction. People's coming back to me. So look, just recently, I did a call out on YouTube where I'm like, right, listen, this year I want to do different. What do you guys want to learn? What does everybody out here want to learn? And so I've had a whole list of pieces. And so my year for YouTube has effectively been sewn up already with just the list of pieces people have wanted to do.
I found it interesting because I noticed that one of the pieces that someone asked for, and it wasn't me,
Yeah.
was something I studied at master's degree for my that was my
What
final
was that?
recital, which is Nikita Koshkin's Prince's Toys Suite.
Yeah, I love that piece. I've wanted to do it for ages, but it is so complex.
I gave my master's degree was 1 year,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I didn't know it, and I knew the piece to listen to because I've listened to it since it came out. I actually had a cassette recorded off the radio from Radio 3 whenever the first performance was, and I think it was about 1980.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Vladimir Mikulka playing
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So I had this tape, and I can actually remember going on a holiday as a snotty nosed kid, listening to this Prince's Toys Suite on a cassette Walkman, and so it was a piece that I'd always thought about playing, and my teacher. One of my teachers at university started saying to me, "Well, you need to have something difficult to play for masters." And I think at one point I mentioned the Catalan, the Miguel Lobo Catalan
yeah.
folk songs. I said, could I do that as a set? And he said, no, 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 it's not difficult enough. So then I said, well, Koshkin's Prince's Toy Suite, and he said, well, get the score and I'll have a look at it. So
Oh
he
no.
looked at the score and he said, yeah, that's difficult enough. So and that left me with about, I think I had, well, I mean, that would have
Did
been
you play the
September.
entire suite? Did you play the entire suite?
Yeah.
Wow, impressive. Because
Yeah,
that's,
my
I mean,
masters, I didn't play the finale, but what I
okay.
did was not around the time of the masters. I did another recital, and I played the finale as well. So yes, I learnt a lot.
Great. It's a lovely piece, and all of those techniques are just so relevant today. But
Yes,
I you know what I know it's not it's not good to say currently, but I love Koshkin. I think Koshkin's one of the most inventive sort of composers out there. He really pushes the guitar. Another one of his that I would love to do, but it's literally Piece with Clocks.
yes,
But that's a 10-string guitar prepared.
yeah.
And so you've got to have, and not, I don't have a 10-string guitar. I don't know anybody else. There are
I
very few
don't.
people, yeah, that have a 10-string classical guitar. So yeah, but the Princess Suite, lovely, and so many great ideas too.
He wrote. There's a beautiful piece of his Avalon.
Oh, I don't know that one.
It's gorgeous. It's just an absolutely gorgeous piece, and of course, most people know the Usher Waltz.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, I started to do that actually. That was planned as well, but that's also fallen by the wayside. So
okay.
I've done the harmonics for the Usher waltz because there's that lovely harmonic waltz in the middle there, which I really really love.
I have a feeling I've performed that. I can't. I certainly learnt it, and I could play. I could play it, but I think I've probably played it a few times in concert. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I love Koshkin, and actually, I wrote him a couple of words on Facebook the other day, because I just thought, well, because he sent a message out to say I may be losing contact with you all. Here's my email address, and
yeah,
I just think I actually feel sorry for. Especially for guitar composers,
yeah.
because he's on the fringe really of mainstream composers, and he can't have well. I wouldn't have thought he's got the best income in the world,
I don't know because I don't know what he's doing in terms of teaching wise.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
but
agree.
I just wish him the best. I just think with musicians,
Yeah.
you know, these are sad times, but
Yeah, completely, and especially if you're a Russian musician as well now. I mean, I suspect that they've cut off. Well, they've cut off pretty much most of Russia. So, I mean, if he's earning anything for international students or something like that, that's gone.
mm, mm.
And it's not his fault.
Now, it's interesting about some of your background that I've read about, and I'm curious to ask you, which is
Sure.
you've got a very eclectic background in music. So, you mentioned classical, you mentioned
Yeah,
rock, you mentioned metal, and
yeah,
what was the other one?
jazz,
Jazz.
jazz. I love jazz. I mean, for a classical guitarist, I started late. I was 20. I
Right.
started classical at really, really late, and I had a lot of catching up to do. But before that, I started on drums. I was a drummer at high school.
Right.
And so that's where my love of jazz and Cuban music comes from because it's all rhythm based.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I did cello in high school and then bass guitar as well because we landed in Australia and then that first year or something like that I had music lessons but I had no one. There was no one there and I knew no one. And so I said to the head of music, I said, listen, can I take the bass guitar out? And he gave me the bass guitar and the amp and he's like, right, have at it. And so over that summer I spent learning bass from a book and then went back in the next year and started playing with the school band and stuff like that.
And you played with a few bands. I noticed you mentioned a few of these
I
bands, and
have. I've
there's
played.
some videos of you in the studio as well, recording as well.
Yeah, yeah. I did. The first band I was in was a band called the Blue Horses, which is Celtic goth rock. So they were doing a lot of folk metal, basically, which was fantastic. It was a great experience. I got to do some really great gigs with them. And then I got asked to join another band who from the guitarist from Blue Horses, which was Shankara, and that was more prog rock. So
Yeah.
that was I love the writing process. I love making music, and making music with a band is really special because you chuck an idea out and everybody's like, oh no, that's crap. We'll take that bit and let's see, and it all becomes this mishmash of just everybody working together.
Does that experience playing other styles, does that inform your approach to especially classical guitar?
A little bit. It informs more my performance. One of the reasons why I did it was because I was tired of sitting alone on stage. It is just that simple. It is a very particular feeling playing solo classical guitar, and you literally you got to have your shit together. There is no two ways about it. And so I got tired of walking that tightrope for an hour or sometimes 2 or 3 hours, depending on which gig you were being paid for. And I wanted something different. I wanted to see what it was like to get on stage with a band and actually have some fun.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that informed my classical playing when I came back to solo performance.
And how about for things like interpretation, about when you see some sort of technical passage in classical, like a scale or something, can you draw on those influences?
A little bit. I mean, from a theoretical point of view, yeah, because you've got to be able to break the music down to be able to tell people, right, we're doing this and it's going to be in this key, or we're doing this time change or something like that, for sure. But from a purely technical point of view, bass guitar helped me because obviously the strings are much bigger than the classical guitar, so my IM fingers are fairly decently strong because of that, and then my left hand as well, the left hand strength that I have, that purely informs everything on classical, because it is just so much harder to push notes around. And I mean, I have a 6-string bass as well, so it goes from really thick to really high, and then it's a much bigger fretboard. I mean, the fretboard is at least 1.5 times the classical. So that pure technique, just literally the physicality of it, yes, definitely. But I think that from all the other perspectives, they both kind of lock in and flow into each other. I don't think one informs the. It's a bit of a give and take.
So Rhayn, so with your teacher hat on,
Yeah.
when are you ever approached by, especially like adult guitarists who are, they've done loads and loads of electric playing and they want to play more classical, and you kind of, does that experience also help you as a teacher to kind of sympathize with the area that they are coming from?
And also to be able to explain it to them, so that I have the technical knowledge to say, right, this would be a sweep arpeggio, but for us we would do it ppima or something like that. So it gives me the ability to make it more inclusive. If that's, because there's nothing worse than going to a lesson and then finding yourself going, I'm not too sure what the guy's talking about, or I'm not too sure what they're talking about. And so I prefer to be able to say, yeah, meet them on their terms and go, yes, it's like this or it's like that. This style of music is a lot like this style in classical. It's a different sort of container.
Mm. Do you find as well that experience from non-classical music? Do you find, I mean, usually people play a lot more by ear and play a lot more by feel and more intuitively in a way, whereas classical, most of it's, you've got the dots, and it's a different side in terms of the psychology of approaching the music. I guess for a purely rock guitarist who's used to getting to a band rehearsal and playing and the rest of it, or even a jazz fusion guitarist, it's thinking of the chord sequences and the rest of it. The actual notion of classical music, just looking at dots, that's not broken down into chords, even though it is a series of chords and harmonies.
For me, it's interesting because I find a lot of people get put off for that, especially the adult learners. And so what I generally tend to do is I will try and bring it down to the barest basic. I'm saying, right, here's this progression. This is what they're doing here. Because 9 times out of 10 with the classical, they're using an idea that then just gets transposed across the progression, and it's a little bit like jazz just written down. And so to be able to demystify that and just take it off the page and go, right, don't look at the dots so much, don't look at all of these, the bar lines. I know there's lots, have a look at the progression. And so a lot of the time, that's what I will do. I will break the progression down straight away and say, right, we're just doing chord here, this chord here. And then he is using this idea in this bar, and then he's just doing the same idea with variations a couple of bars later with, say, a linking idea. And I find that easier for most adults to grasp, where they can see the structure. A lot of them, I do a little bit despair, and I know you asked about tab as well, and I'm all for tab for this very reason. A lot of them get put off because of the black marks on the page, and it becomes a process of trying to decode it. And because they haven't got the decoding skills, where they've 9 times out of 10 they've only stuck with the first 5 frets, and they'll maybe possibly get fret 5, but anything above fret 7 is onto the steps of Mordor, up in the Misty Mountains. They've no idea what the hell's going on. And so my job, I think, is to try and open that up a little bit more. And even if I have to spoon feed them a little bit and say, right, well, actually, that idea, yeah, you could play it there, and you possibly, but it's actually better suited in this position of the guitar because of the key and, where the composer has put it. So that's the way I approach it.
So in your opinion, what place does tab have in terms of its advantages, and what place does musical dots have? Because I have this eternal conversation, shall I put it, with certain students who they prefer tab, but I say you really should learn to read. You should if you're going to do this, you should do both. You should go through the pain for both, because in my opinion, both have their advantages, and it's great to have knowledge of both. So then you're in the luxury position of using one for its advantages and then using the other one for its advantages. If you have any opinions on the advantages and disadvantages of either?
Yeah, no, completely. I mean, because through my, believe it or not, I didn't get a wrist slap, but when I first started, because I used to do publications for Classical Guitar magazine, and I always put tab in, and that was questioned. That was questioned at the magazine as to why are we using tab here. And so I pushed back and I said, well, actually, I think it's important for the publication, because some of the ideas here are really, really complex, and you're not going to be able to figure them all out. And tab just gives you that instant, that's where it is. That's all it does. Tab is just put finger here. It's a very simple set of instructions. But then you have to look above into the notes to actually say, yeah, well, you put your finger here, but this is what you're doing with that finger. That finger has to move around in this sort of rhythm. That finger needs this tone. That finger needs this expression. So there is a ton of information that stave gives you that tab doesn't. But to begin with, initially, for most people that are, that aren't, I don't want to say professional, because I don't think that's right, but just that aren't as well versed or well read in stave, tab is good, but it only gets you so far. Tab will only get you so far, and then also you're at the mercy of your editor. Because if someone screws up the notes on the tab and you're just reading tab and you're not checking above to see if the notes are right,
yes,
you learn, and there are some really bad examples of that I've seen, where the tab is horrendously wrong. And then I'm just like, well, could we just look above to see what actually was written? So yeah, I think there's place for both, but tab is a very simple structure. It's a beginning point. You need the stave.
And what about if teaching beginners? Which system would you teach first?
Okay, if I'm teaching a straight beginner, straight away on stave, and I'm really tough like this, and I'm mean, and I tell my students straight away, I'm tough and I'm mean. You're not going to like me to begin with, but in a couple of months' time, you're going to love me, because you will have done all the hard work, and you will be able to just read, or you'll be able to just play. And so, yeah, straight away, because it's not a difficult system, stave. It really isn't a difficult system to learn. It just takes a little bit of time. And then
I confess to doing the same with my students, especially my young students, 8, 9-year-olds. It's
There's
actually
no there's no excuse, and they're so young that they literally will generally just accept it. It's only when they get a bit older and they get a bit bolshy and they're like, no, I don't want to. I can read tab. But by that point, they've done the basics, and so they can read tab. They can, so not tab. They can read the stave, and so it's not a problem. And then the tab is just like an added extra. But yeah, I'm super mean with that. Stave straight away with the young beginners.
so. Moving on to some of your musical interests. So now, does your musical interests in the lessons that you prepare, say the Villa-Lobos or when there's Brouwer, or or any of the others. Is that the music that you're interested in, or because I know you said that sometimes you're now getting requests for composers. When you started this, was it more or less just the composers that you had an intellectual curiosity about?
Yeah, completely. I mean, the Villa-Lobos has always been a massive thing for me, because I've always felt that we should all play all 12, or at the very least have knowledge of all 12. And when I first started it, I actually emailed some really famous guitarists and messaged them, and I was surprised by the majority of them saying, no, I've only played one or two. That's it. I don't want to. And for the most, it was number one, number two, and then number seven. And that was it. And so that's where that was like, no, that's ridiculous. We should be playing that. So I had already done 11 of them by that point. But by done, I mean I'd read through and played through, but I hadn't fully put into my system. The other music that I put out on YouTube is generally stuff that I like or stuff that someone has mentioned that I can play. So the Brouwer, most of the Brouwer stuff, that's my wheelhouse. That's what I studied. Brouwer was my composer of choice when I did Cuban music.
Mm.
And Dyens is a love of mine, and I think we need more Dyens out there. Everybody's so put off by the difficulty for Dyens, and so that's a passion project for me. Is Dyens and Brouwer are, putting the music out there to say, you know what, it's not that difficult. It needs a little bit of work, but it's beautiful, and you need to learn it. And now I'm taking requests for stuff that I haven't learned and that I am going to have to look at. So yeah, and then that's great because that challenges me. It keeps me on my toes as well.
So, because I noticed one of the pieces that you were looking at was the Domeniconi Koyunbaba, which I did perform years ago. The whole thing, and it's quite a grandiose piece to actually get
Yes.
to get to grips with because the open tuning.
Yes, I mean the tuning puts people off, and then you've got to read two different staves because they've got the classical tab, as it were, in there, on top of the stave at pitch, and so it's like for me it was a case of listen, this is such a beautiful piece. And it's not that difficult really if you look at it. There was a lot of repetition, especially that final movement. There is a ton of repetition in there, but once you've got your head around all of that and you've got your head around the different techniques that are involved, it's a beautiful piece and it's worth learning. So I was like, I want this out there. I want people to learn this. Let's demystify it. Get the tuning video out first. Explain the music, the stave, how that works. And then just get it out there and help them and just show them the fingerings. Because again, you've got to wrestle with the stave to learn that.